Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Arizona Illustrated for Friday, the 7th of December, 2012. I'm Jim Ninsel, host of Political Roundtable, our weekly analysis and commentary on local, state, and national politics. Tonight on the Roundtable, we'll talk about what state lawmakers will do about the Affordable Care Act and immigration in the upcoming legislative session. Joining me this evening is State Representative Bruce Wheeler, State Senator Frank Antenori, Tucson City Councilman Steve Kozachik, and Tucson Tea Party founder Trent Humphries. Thanks to all of you guys for being here. Before we get started, however, Tucson Mayor Jonathan Rothschild stopped by the studio earlier today to catch up on some city issues. Joining me now in the studio is Mayor Jonathan Rothschild, who is celebrating his first year in office this week. Mayor Rothschild, thank you for being here.
Jim, thanks for having me.
Let's get started with this whole road bonds question. You pushed the council to put this on the ballot this year, and it turns out that you won by the narrowest of margins, under 1,000 votes. What can voters expect next?
Well, the bond was planned in this way. One, to publicly say in advance what roads we're going to do, and there's a map of that. Next is really appointing the bond oversight committee. And if you go on the city website, if you have any interest in that, there will be 11 people appointed, 4 by the city manager, 1 by myself, and by each council person, to make sure that we do what we promised the voters. We will now go out and purchase the bonds, and you will begin to see that work with those bond monies beginning in the year 2014. And for 5 years thereafter, we will be taking a number of our roads, not all of them, but a number of our roads, and trying to give them 30-year lives.
And there's a lot more happening downtown these days. We've got student housing getting built. We have more restaurants and bars opening up. We have the streetcar line coming in. There's the signs of revitalization of the downtown area, but the city still has quite a number of disputes with the Rio Nuevo board that have been continuing. What's the latest with those?
Well, with the Rio Nuevo board, Mr. McCusker and I are trying to work through the details. We have agreed that with our council, we will, our legal counsel, we will try to get an agreement that we both think is fair. We're going to take those to our respective councils, and hopefully we'll have an agreement. And if we get an agreement, the agreement will, I am hoping to see something that will settle all the disputes once and for all, and set forth really a platform for going forward together to continue the synergy and the redevelopment of downtown that we've really seen absent the Rio Nuevo board for the last several years.
And of course, there's a dispute over who should be doing the repairs to the Tucson Convention Center, and you have some other problems regarding management of the Convention Center at this point. What's the future of the Convention Center?
Well, it's a good question. With regard to putting the money into the Convention Center, you know, the original Rio Nuevo legislation was really to revitalize and rehabilitate the Convention Center, which would include the arena, plus to build a hotel. And so those are two things that actually have to happen in order for the board to spend money on other projects. So we're hoping to see a substantial investment by the Rio Nuevo board in the Convention Center. What the future of it is long-term, I'm not certain. We need to first get it into a place where it is something that can attract shows. And after that, we're going to have to take a long-term look at what is competitive, and are we in a position where we can do that, or should somebody else do it?
And let's talk about the streetcars. How much longer is the construction going to be continuing on the project in the downtown area?
The construction, which is on schedule, and I know if you're along the streetcar route, particularly a merchant, it's hard to believe that and fathom it, but it is on schedule, is scheduled to be fully completed towards the end of 2013, the beginning of 2014. We hope to have our first route, our first traffic, right at that time period.
And are we going to get these cars on time? There's been numerous reports that the Portland manufacturer has fallen behind in actually building the streetcars themselves.
Yeah, we're told that our cars are on time. Whether it will stay that way, we monitor it on a monthly basis. We have people from our transportation department that go up and visit the manufacturing plant. Quite honestly, from my perspective, I want to get the road done. I want to get our merchants back up and running. If the car comes a month or two late, that's not a great concern in the long run picture, but we're going to continue to push them to get it done, hopefully when they told us they'd get it done.
And there are concerns about the subsidies that are going to be required to run the streetcar, and I'd like you to address that.
Well, the bottom line is that right now the RTA has put away $13.5 million for the first years of operation and maintenance of the streetcar. Depending on the numbers, that could be anywhere from 4 to 6 years where there will be no requirement of city contribution. In the meantime, we need to make agreements, and we're in the process of trying to make agreements with both the University of Arizona and with Pima Community College for transportation passes that will include not just the streetcar, but buses. And if those can work out appropriately, we should be pretty close to making that something that breaks even. But the biggest part of a project like that isn't necessarily looking at line item, but looking at the economic investment that's being made along the streetcar route. And we're just seeing, a lot of what you're seeing downtown is because of the streetcar. One East Broadway, a number of the projects, Jim Campbell's projects, they want the student housing. They want to be on the streetcar route.
And let's talk about the future of Broadway. Some very vocal folks are out there saying it does not need to be widened to 8 lanes. Our regular panelist and your colleague on the council, Steve Kozachik, is one of them. What do you see as the future for that corridor?
Well, the RTA is, and I'm a member of that RTA board as the mayor, and I have 1 vote of 9. The RTA has taken particular pride in saying a bond was passed. Unlike some bonds that have been passed, we're going to do exactly what the voters said. And that certainly is an appropriate position. At the same time, there are alignment questions, and there are questions about really what is the proper scope of that project. And really from the behest of Councilman Kozachik and our entire city council, the RTA has opened up the process and said, we will look at that. We will look at alignment. So I think what you're going to see over the next year is a community process where there are some revisions made to the plan. And quite frankly, same thing we did along the downtown links. And we just need to get the RTA to understand that you have to involve the community. One of the successes or beauties of the RTA has been they've done a lot of suburban and rural projects. Those are a lot different than when you're doing urban projects, 22nd Street, Broadway, and Grant. And the Grant Road alignment was something that took over a year to put in place. I think you're going to see the same process along Broadway, and there are some challenges there. There's a lot of property to acquire, and I'm not sure how much money the RTA has just for property acquisition.
And we're running out of time here, but I did want to mention your police officer, Robert Carpenter,
Yes.
shot in the head a few
Yes.
weeks ago. Can you tell us how he's doing?
Well, I visited him shortly after he was shot. If you want to use the word miracle, he was conscious, he was alert, he was coherent. It's my understanding he's continuing with the recovery. I mean, it was a serious injury to be shot in the head. He's hopefully making a good recovery, but I'm not sure ultimately what his prognosis will be. I do know that Tucson Police Foundation has set up a fund to help his family, and if you go to the Tucson Police Foundation website, there's a place for a Robert Carpenter Fund, and it would be wonderful for the community, particularly at this time of the year, to reach out to the family, and we all just wish him and his family well.
Very well. Thank you very much for joining me. Have a very happy Hanukkah, and we'll see you next time.
And you have a good holiday season too, Jim. Appreciate it.
And we're back with the roundtable. Bruce, I wanted to talk today a little bit about legislative issues, and one of the things I wanted to talk to you about in particular was we've got a new legislature up there starting in January. Democrats picked up a few seats in both the House and the Senate. How do you think the legislature is going to change in this next session?
Well, we picked up 4 seats in the House and 4 in the Senate. In the House, we have 13 new Democrats and 13 new Republicans. So 26 out of 60 are new faces, and I think that's reason to hope and be optimistic that we're going to put some of the more extreme ideology aside and concentrate on the real issues of education, healthcare, and public safety.
And Frank, you're leaving the legislature, but your sense of how this new legislature is going to be operating?
I think when Andy Biggs is president, you're going to see a focus on the fiscal house, making sure Arizona stays on a sound, responsible fiscal trajectory and not get back into the mess that we had to dig ourselves out of. And I think you're going to see a very pragmatic approach to the other types of bills that will go through. Andy's a pretty sharp guy, and he's bound by his oath to the Constitution. He's going to live up to that.
And how do you think the redistricting affected how the legislature changed?
Cap Times had a great analysis on it. The Democrats didn't win a single election on November 6th. They won it all on May 15th, I think the date was, when the Independent Redistricting Commission finalized the maps. The analysis based off of the competitive estimate in the 8 option that the commission did was almost exactly the way the legislature turned out, and the congressional districts. And what's really funny is during the several meetings that were going on, Rick Sturtz was referring to CD9 the entire time as the Sinema district. He accused Ms. McNulty of specifically drawing that district for Kirsten Sinema, and she said hogwash. Oh, nothing could be further from the truth. And it's like, there we go. CD9 is now the Sinema district, and that was predisposed months and months ago.
Do you think these seats were rigged by the Independent Redistricting Commission?
Absolutely not. I think it brings balance and reality finally back into the process. You know, Arizona is roughly, we all know, 1/3 Republican, 1/3 Democrat, 1/3 Independent. And when you have a supermajority in the legislature belonging to one party because they've been able to control the process, and all of a sudden they're screaming and squealing about how unfair the process is, well, now it's more balanced. And even with greater balance, it still doesn't really reflect what the state is. So I'm generally pleased. I think we have some work to do, but I think the Independent Redistricting Commission and Colleen Mathis did a really exemplary job.
Oh, she did. I'll give her that. The reality is their analysis about 1/3, 1/3 has been proven bunk. There is no such thing as a true independent. They lean either left or they lean either right. And Arizona votes 58% Republican. And that was, again, true in this district. There are a lot of independents out there that left the Republican Party because it wasn't conservative enough, just like there are independents that left the Democratic Party because it wasn't liberal enough. And they're more committed to the ideology of the far left or the far right than either Republicans or Democrats. And I've met several of those during the campaign. And I'm telling you, if you look at the way the state broke down and the number of votes that Romney got as opposed to Obama statewide, and the way our state-wide corporation commission races went, you can clearly see that Arizona is a red state. The only reason we have 5 congressional districts that are Democrat and 4 that are Republican in a state that went, again, almost 57-58% Republican is because the lines were gerrymandered. They underpopulated the Democrat districts so they can get 5 districts, and they overpopulated the Republican districts. Just look at the districts that Salmon and those guys are in, and Gosar. They got like 64-65% of the vote. And it's cut and dry that they packed and cracked those districts, and hopefully the court will find that and ask the legislature and the commission to redraw the lines fairly.
Except for when Governor Napolitano was elected twice statewide, except for when Bill Clinton carried the state in '96, except when the people voted for a half-cent sales tax 2 years ago to fund education. This is not a reactionary state. This is a very reasonably minded state, and the legislature is beginning to reflect that reality.
Well, on the same side, the 1 cent sales tax went down on a 2-to-1 margin, Bruce.
2 years ago. The one 2 years ago.
Well, the one this year went down 2-to-1. So
that's
it's the
because
exact opposite.
it was a Christmas tree.
All right, let's talk about some of what we're going to see at the legislature, because 2 of our guests aren't even having a chance to talk here. But Bruce, the governor decided against the state-run healthcare exchange last week. Are we now likely to see an expansion of the access population up to 130% of the federal poverty level, which is the other part of Obamacare?
I certainly hope so for 2 reasons. One is economic and the other is moral. The economic imperative is that it means for every $1 that the state of Arizona were to spend, the federal government is going to invest $9. That is hundreds of millions of dollars not only into the economy and to help people get some decent medical care, it's also going to help sustain hospitals, particularly rural hospitals. Hospitals are facing real severe challenges, fiscal challenges. And when we don't have health insurance and we load up the ER rooms and we depend on paramedics to do the work that ought to be done with preventive medicine, I think that does not make economic sense. And morally, of course, I think, of course, we ought to have access roles expanded to include adults and without children, and also reflect the 130% poverty level.
Frank, any chance of that happening at this legislature?
Not a snowball in hell.
Really?
Really.
It's just not
going to happen.
There's a lot of federal money on the table.
Doesn't matter. It's still tax dollars, and it still comes out of my pocket. You got two wallets, Jim. You got a state tax wallet and a federal tax wallet. We're borrowing money from China now at 43 cents on the dollar. We're already ready to go off the fiscal cliff at the federal level. Our federal budget we haven't had one in over 3 years. It hasn't been balanced in like 8 years. We can't afford it. We can't keep giving away goodies and expecting the Treasury money fairy to start dropping money in our lap. We can't do it. It's fiscally irresponsible to expand entitlements and create an expanded welfare state rather than doing the right thing, which is creating an economy that's free market based that creates jobs, not taking over 1/6 the economy and nationalizing it. Big mistake.
Steve, what do you want to see out of this
Yeah, well, let
legislature?
me join in with this conversation here first, because Trent and I want to play too. Look, we have people using the emergency rooms as their primary care physicians right now. We have hospitals going broke, as Bruce reflected. The rural health clinics are just in disarray right now. The Grand Canyon Institute did a study, put out a white paper several weeks ago that indicated that at 133% of the poverty line, we're going to create another 21,000 jobs in this state, and it's going to move that economic needle by 1 full percentage point. This is, as Bruce said, it's both ethical and it makes economic sense. And I would hope that this legislature gets off the dime and does the right thing for the most needy people in our state.
The Cato Institute says it's going to cost the country 40 million jobs.
We're
a lot of
talking
those
about-
jobs.
We're talking about the
Steve,
state of Arizona.
As we've seen, the federal economy ripples down to the states, and it will ripple down to the states.
The question we're answering is the one that Jim asked, and that is, are we going to go to 133% in that state? So you can answer a federal question.
138%
is what the white paper was studying, and that's what's on the table. Okay. So you can answer a different question, but I'm answering Jim's.
Jim, the reality is we're all a part of the United States. At least last I checked, Baja, Arizona hasn't gone anywhere. The reality is we, as a country and as a state, are facing a fiscal situation economically that's going to hurt us. And to again, expand and spend money that we don't have is going to hurt the economy and cost us jobs. It is not going to create jobs.
And so, well, that's not what the Grand Canyon Institute study said. It netted out at 21,000 to the positive, plus moving the economic needle, as I said. But you're also ignoring the fact that hospitals are going under, rural health clinics are absolutely going under, and this is a question of priorities and identifying the most needy in our society, balancing the budget on those people. You can call, you guys up at the legislature can point to your little honeypot at the end of the legislative session and say, we did good because we saved money. You're leaving people out on the street. And people are not data, Frank, and that's something
Steve,
you guys need to remember.
Okay, I'm not going to go down the touchy-feely.
There's nothing touchy-feely about taking care of the most needy people in our society, and you guys can point to a surplus at the end of your session.
Is paved with good intentions. We had a legislature and a governor that went down that road, and they bankrupted this state. They drove it into a $3 billion budget deficit by expanding entitlements and spending money we didn't have, that forced a fiscal crisis on this state that cost the state 320,000 private sector jobs. And you want to go down that road again. That is a stupid thing to do.
What we are
to
talking about,
damage the economy of the state.
What we are talking about is moving the eligibility for the access system to 133% of the poverty
level. And what does that solve?
It solves it. Well, I just listed 3 of them for you. People using emergency rooms as their PCPs.
When today they just came out with a report.
Hospitals going broke. Don't shout me down, Frank.
40% of physicians are going to leave. You're telling me to shut up now.
Yeah,
Mr. Civility here.
Hospitals going broke and rural health clinics in total disarray. Those are significant issues in this state right now, Frank, and you guys ignored it while you were up there.
And when 1/3 of the physicians leave the business and there is no access to care because of Obamacare, we'll come back and we'll have this discussion and we'll see who's right.
Well, I guess we're going to have to wait and see, but I suppose it's possible you could have an initiative campaign that would actually do the expansion if the legislature won't do it, Bruce.
Well, thank God we do have the initiative effort, but really we ought to really have a really good debate in this session, in this legislative session. I think the facts are on our side, the ethical, moral, and business argument are on our side. Let's wait and see what kind of new members that I mentioned, the 26 members in the House alone, Let's wait and see what they think.
And we can hope for that, because as we see the pendulum swing back towards the center up in the legislature, we all come into a governing body, and we all hear from a different voice of constituents. Bruce hears from some, Frank, Trent, you, me. To walk into the room where we're going to create public policy and assume that everybody else at the table is a blank slate, and that it's a zero-sum game and I win and you lose, is not the way you create good public policy. You come in, you express what you're hearing from your constituents, me, you, the rest of us, and we all throw that in the pot, and we come away from that in a collaborative way, say that we are going to create a policy that reflects the greater good of the community, incorporating the multiple voices in the community. That's not what's been happening up there. And so I share Bruce's optimism that coming forward into this new legislative session, we're going to see a little more of that collaboration.
Frank, let me ask you about immigration
Just
legislation.
like you're seeing it at the federal level right now over the fiscal cliff discussion, but let's go.
What about immigration legislation? Are we likely to see any more of that?
I don't think you're going to see any immigration legislation. There may be one or two introduced by some new members that had made some promises to their constituents when they were campaigning, but I don't think they're going to go anywhere. I think that's been vetted out in the courts. The Supreme Court ruled that the majority of SB 1070 has remained, out of the 12 provisions, 8 of them are in effect and were upheld by the Supreme Court. So Arizona got what we wanted. Now it's time to enforce it. The governor has directed AZ Post to put out the requirements and standards for police officers to enforce SB 1070. The municipalities and counties are responsible for that. If they fail to do that, they're liable to suit from the people that believe they're not upholding the law.
Immigration off the table, then, you think, for the most part?
I think so, because I think the ideologues have learned their lesson. We want to get down to business. The business community is not interested in this. The Chamber of Commerce is not interested in these extreme pieces of legislation. I think that's not going to be happening this next session.
Extreme pieces of legislation that mimic word for word the 1986 Immigration Reform and Control Act that was passed by a bipartisan vote in the U.S. Congress. So that's anything that isn't a far left belief is extreme. So that's the definition now. That's how far left the needle has moved.
I think you guys heard pretty clearly from the business community about 18 months ago when 52 of them wrote a letter to you guys and said, back off, you're an embarrassment to the state, you're making this state a laughingstock nationwide, internationally, and all of you ran away from it, with the exception of Russell Pierce. At least he had the principles to stand up and say, I believe in this crap that we're putting out there. The rest of you saw potential campaign donors say, you know what, we may not be funding you. I'm not done, Frank. We may not be funding you next time, and so you ran away from that stuff.
I would love to know the reality that you operate in.
You are trying to. Well, then stop talking and listen. You are trying to make teachers, business operators, local law enforcement operators into ICE agents. Every one of those groups have rejected what you guys have put on the table, and Bruce is right. We finally have an opportunity right now to make ourselves not the national, international laughingstock that you guys made us. Trent hasn't had a chance to talk.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say,
if I could add, the international laughingstock is to the west of us, which is California, which is going down the tubes because they've implemented these crazy liberal policies that these guys, I guess, are espousing to. The reality is, we enforce the law in the state. It's federal law, and we're just enforcing federal law. The bills that failed, the people that voted against them, one of them was me. I didn't vote against them because Jim Click wrote me a letter or Don Diamond wrote a letter. I voted against them because 2 of them were unconstitutional and violated the 14th Amendment. There is a principle that some of us hold that we take an oath to uphold. And I don't uphold no vote to nobody in the business community. I uphold an oath to my constituents and to the Constitution. And that's the way I vote. To imply that I vote because 50 guys write me a letter and tell me to vote a certain way is an insult.
That's
and I think
everyone
it's
ran
quite,
away from those
yeah,
things. That is
again, you're giving more credit where credit's not due.
Trent, what does the Tea Party want to see up at the legislature this year?
Well, obviously, keep the fiscal house in order. I mean, that's the thing, is that we actually have an advantage over other states now because we do have our fiscal state in order. People are going to be streaming out of California like you wouldn't believe. We have an opportunity to pick those people up, and we have been picking them up, just not in southern Arizona. Phoenix they've been doing very, very well with the influx of people coming out of California with the reverse sooner or the reverse. The reverse gold rush, yeah. So and I would like to see us in Southern Arizona do what we can to become more friendly, get rid of some of the extra requirements that we have, and for once, Tucson really needs to fix those land use requirements that we've been promising to do for 10 years. And we keep hearing about we're going to have a compromise, we're going to get it done. It's not been done.
The Metropolitan Pima Alliance held a banquet last weekend in which the City of Tucson's revision of the land use code was acknowledged as one of the most significant issues that has happened region-wide in the last 12 months. So you're 3 or 4 days behind the times. But maybe we can, to tag on to what you just said, an issue that I'm hoping that we can all agree on, and that is with respect to Southern Arizona economic development. If we can get the legislature and the feds to help work on expanding the infrastructure on the port of entry in Nogales, and importantly, the roadways that lead into that port, those ports of entry, we're going to have 21 border ports in the Nogales sector in 2014. The problem is that pinches down into 2 lanes, both north and south of the border. That's commerce, and that's something that will benefit the state immensely if we can get the state and the feds to help to expand that infrastructure. It's a very big deal for the state.
I'm a big fan of high fences and wide gates. I support that idea. We've been trying to get the federal government to put the infrastructure in. The misconception is that Republicans are against immigration. Nothing could be further from the truth.
I'm not talking about immigration. I'm talking about
commerce,
commerce,
Steve.
Frank.
Now it's my turn to talk, okay? What I'm talking about is they create this perception. I want gates and I want people to come to this country. My grandmother is an immigrant, okay? So if we have the infrastructure at the ports to allow people to come here, visit, tourism, shopping, even to come for work, that's fine. Nobody's against that. The federal government has failed to put that infrastructure and the ability to allow people to go back and forth across that border with as little discomfort as possible. And we have been trying and been screaming as a state. Part of those bills that we ran at the legislature were cries for help to the federal government to help deal with this problem. And they continue, including our congressmen from this part of the state who continue to refuse to look at those issues because they're pushing this euphemistic comprehensive immigration reform when they should be focusing on making it easier to go back and forth across the border and expediting the visa process rather than pandering to a constituency that basically wants to grant an amnesty.
I wasn't even talking about immigration. I was talking about commerce. You totally missed the point.
No, I didn't, Steve. No,
we
I
all,
didn't.
Bruce, you agree we should, and actually we are out of town, but we all agree we should improve this port of entry.
Sure. Steve's absolutely right. I look forward to working with Steve and the City of Tucson on other economic development issues. And I don't think we have time for education, but we need to replenish some of the 2.2 massive billion-dollar cuts and get back to the 2008 levels at least, and begin to address our education challenges, which are severe, serious, and must be improved and acted upon.
Okay, and that is all the time we have for tonight. You can learn more about what's happening in politics by visiting azpm.org. And while you're on our website, we'd love to hear your thoughts about tonight's program, so be sure to leave us a comment. To find out the latest from AZPM, follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Stay tuned next for the News Hour, and then at 8:30, tune into Arizona Week for reflections on Pearl Harbor Day. I'm Jim Ninsel. Thanks for watching, and have a great weekend.